I am Willie Wolf, and I'm a member of the Cheyenne River Sioux tribe. I'm Lakota, and my grandmother is buried in Greengrass, which is a very sacred place on our reservation and to the Lakota Nation. And today the topic is on lateral violence in the workplace. And some people a lot of people are familiar with the concept, but in case you're not, this comes from the historical trauma that our people have experienced, and we've gone through a lot of healing around this, and a lot more needs to be done. And what we have found is because of all the traumas that we've experienced throughout our lives and going back, it also has impacted the workplace. And so we carry a lot of this hurt and pain with us as we go into the workplace. And so that's what the lateral violence is about, is what that looks like. And so I wanted to give you some examples. I think the best way to share with you what lateral violence is to come up with some examples. And one of the more common ones that we see is abuse of power. And it takes many different forms. Sometimes it can be tribal leadership. For instance, I know of one instance, but it could be any number of instances. I've seen many examples of this where an entire department was fired, all the employees in it, and this was done without due process. And they had the legal right to do this, but then there's a difference between whether you can do something and whether you should do something. And this caused a ripple effect throughout the organization and demoralized the rest of the staff and had a lot of other consequences. But that's just one example of an abuse of power. Another thing that we see happening, and as an example here, is malicious rumors, which in some organizations are almost a weekly event, it seems like. And they can be very, very devastating to the individuals that are affected by this. And even if it comes out later that this was a malicious rumor, it was essentially a lie that somebody fabricated because they were hurt or wanted to retaliate against this individual or whatever it may be. The credibility of that individual has still been affected in a negative way, and that may carry on for some time after that. So this can be very, very destructive. And then we see that there's jealousy within the organization. And one of our spiritual leaders that's now passed on was Chief Foolscrow, and one of his famous sayings was, the two biggest problems in Indian country are alcohol and jealousy. I think there's a lot of truth to that, even though some parts of that have changed. Particularly in relation to the jealousy one. And when people are jealous, they want to retaliate against others. And sometimes they want to do something to bring somebody back down. So I know many of you are familiar with the crab pot metaphor, where a crab is trying to get out of the pot and then all the other crabs pull him back down. And so that's what happens in the workplace when you have a lot of jealousy going on. You don't want other people to have success in their work. And then we see sabotaging behaviors. And there's many, many examples of that. Sometimes somebody may not may take credit for work that they didn't do. That somebody else did. Your supervisor, you may have done the work and then your supervisor takes credit for it and then does not acknowledge you. And so, that's a sabotaging behavior when you see that happening. Another example would be a control issue that oftentimes plays out. And for instance, somebody may be in an administrative support position and they have access to certain information that everyone should have within their department, and they decide that they're only going to give that information out to certain people within the work unit. And so that means some people are out of the loop, and then that causes breakdown in communications and can lead to conflict. So that's another example there. Now, you can also see how do we deal with these issues. And what I want to do is just share with you one way to address some of these, and it has to do with something that's called the Four Agreements. And this is based on a book by Don Miguel Ruiz. And I like it because it comes from the teachings of the Yaqui people. And the first one is be impeccable with your word. And that's about speaking truth to power. And it's about being honest in your communication process. And sometimes it may mean telling somebody something they don't want to hear, but in a good way. And so this is all part of being impeccable with your words, and this helps you deal with the rumors and the gossiping that you see within an organization. Because if you practice this agreement, then that's going to have a positive impact, and others are going to start seeing, hey, I really appreciate the fact that Sam or Jill are impeccable with their words, and maybe that's something I should start doing. Don't take anything personally. And with all these agreements, these are things that your parents or your grandparents probably told you about, and they sound really, really simple, but of course they're not always so easy to do. And this is certainly one like that. Because some people say some things that are really hurtful to us. You know? They may swear at us, they may say things that are very demeaning, may try to humiliate you. And so whenever that happens, it's important for you to say, I'm not available for that, and have some clear boundaries around it. Another one here is don't make assumptions. And we see the world as we are, not as the world is. And sometimes we think something's going to turn out a certain way, and very seldom does that play out the way we think it will. And this is true with people. You know, sometimes we may think somebody is just really mean and negative, and then as we get to know them, we find out that underneath that hard exterior, they're actually a very kind, loving, caring person. But it takes time to develop that relationship to know what they're really like. Another one is always do your best. And when people see this, sometimes they think that's about being perfect. And it's really not. It's about being the best that you're capable of at any given time. So every single day, when you show up at work, you give 100%. And of course, some days you're going to be sick. Some days you may be grieving over a loss that you've had in your life. And so it's going to affect your performance. But if you always do your best, then one of the things that's going to happen is that when you go home at night, you're going to be able to leave your work there and know, I did the best that I was capable of, and you're going to feel a lot better about it. So these are some things that will help you address the issues that come up as part of lateral violence in the workplace. This is part of a much larger presentation, and so for more information on this, you see my contact information here, which includes my email and my phone number, and then also the website, which has a description on lateral violence in the workplace. And I just want to close with Hechatelo Mitake Oyasin, and so it is all my relations. May Tonkashila bless and keep each and every one of you.